I'm here with Nigel Bickle, who is the CEO of Hastings District Council. Kia ora, Nigel, and thanks for joining me.
Kia ora, Andrew. Good to see you.
Now, Nigel, there's been quite a bit of good news for the Hastings Council recently, because there was a report done by the Ministry of Social Development which showed that basically there's been a drop of 77% in emergency housing in the region. That's pretty good news.
Yeah, it is, and it's the result of a pretty sustained effort over the last 4 years across a whole lot of partners, government, council, iwi, to make that happen.
Now, I know you've presented a paper to the council at the last meeting, but before we get onto that, can you just paint a picture of what the situation looked like? What is emergency housing and how did it manifest itself in Hastings District?
Yeah, so I think, look, in 2019, when we initiated this work with the government of the day, we did a really important piece of work to try and understand what was going on in the housing market. And the facts in 2019 was we assessed at the time, working with the government agencies, about 450 people in Hastings living in motels as emergency housing. The government at the time was spending nearly $10 million a year. This was just in Hastings, not Hawke's Bay.
Wow.
We'd seen the public housing register in Hastings grow from less than 50 in 2015 to over 600 in 2019. And we were seeing issues around a small but growing number of homelessness, and generally the housing market not appearing to work. So that was the situation in 2019.
And so you've made it a priority to try and sort this out. How have you gone about that? And what was the paper that you delivered to council? What did it say?
Yeah, so in 2019, we said to the government at the time, look, we seem to have a shared aspiration around this not being the situation, a housing market working for everyone. The government at the time were talking about trying to build 100,000 Kiwi build homes. We had a proposition that said, look, maybe if we all tried to work together, the government, the local council, the iwi, we could actually come up with a plan that would take many years, but we actually could come up with a plan that might work. And that's what we proposed in April 2019 to the then Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern. We did some work together collectively and we put up a plan. That plan was agreed to by the government, and in December 2019, they turned up back to Waipatu Marae and announced that they'd chosen Hastings as a pilot for taking this place-based approach to housing, where we would try to lead this from place and be supported by the government through a range of government agencies. And we knew we had a bunch of problems, Andrew. It was we didn't have enough public housing, but the council hadn't zoned enough land for housing. We had problems with our senior housing portfolio, had a waiting list of hundreds. We had RSE workers coming in greater numbers that were also putting pressure on the housing market. So we said, look, we're going to need to have a really good plan here that's tackling multiple things, but our short-term focus was about getting people out of living in motels, which is just not good for the individuals or for the community as a whole. And we'd ended up with this really wicked dynamic where nearly 2/3 of our motel accommodation was either being used for emergency housing of families or RSE worker accommodation. And in a visitor economy, we'd seen a whole lot of houses converted to Airbnbs. So we set about a plan that had a number of dimensions to it. We needed to build more public houses, so the government committed to building 221 public houses within 18 months. The council changed the district plan to allow the horticultural industry to build RSE properties on orchard and industrial areas. The government announced $9 million to build papakainga housing, so finding iwi Māori-led housing solutions were important. We had situations with at-risk children from a health perspective living in substandard housing. So we had $1 million investment in improving healthy homes. So that's where it started. 4 years on, as you've said, we've almost eliminated emergency housing. We've gone from, we think 450 in 2019, 285 in 2022 when MSD began formally reporting on this, down to 66 individuals left in emergency housing in Hastings at the end of 2023. So something that we're really proud of. We've had 622 houses built across Papakāinga housing, affordable rentals, affordable first homes, and we have also had 372 public kāinga order homes either built or that are under construction today. So it's been all of those things that have kind of contributed to getting to a better place than we were in 2019, but we've still got a long way to go.
Zoning's a pretty tricky issue because, I mean, especially in an area like ours, you've got arable land versus residential land. How do you make that call?
So, look, some of this was, we had a whole bunch of things in train, but if we look at, the land supply today, we have probably record levels of land available now across, high-end market developments like Iona and Havelock North that's underway, Te Wonga Estates, the last sections of Lyndhurst Stage 2 in Hastings, Howard Street that's close to being ready for building houses on. In Flaxmere, we had a lot of underdeveloped land that was zoned residential, but nothing had happened on it. So the Tai Whenua who's developing Wainako, the council that has 4 subdivisions in Flaxmere that's aimed not at social housing, but affordable rentals and affordable first homes. So now we've got a situation where we've got about 1,600 sections available. Because you're right, Andrew, the pressure now is, we know that the prosperity of Hastings and Hawke's Bay is tied up with being a growing district, growing world-class food and wine. And, we've got some difficult things in front of the council this year. We're proposing further changes to the district plan that's looking to intensify housing within the existing urban areas, identified city living zones. And that's all about trying to make sure that what we're not doing is taking more productive greenfield land for housing. But equally, there's plenty of people in the community that says, well, we don't want to see, intensification. So everything's really difficult now in terms of quite difficult trade-offs that have to be made between, how land is used.
And when you say intensification, what are we talking about? Are we talking about high-rise apartments, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, so what we're talking about is saying in identified city living zones, with proper urban design standards, allowing as almost permitted activity, three houses to a section up to 3 stories in height, which is some of the the things that some councils don't have any choices on, like in Auckland and the big metros, but not right across the board. Kind of trying to be quite deliberate about where intensification, but with good urban design standards that apply to that intensification. But this will again be a difficult decision for council to make on behalf of the community, because you've got people that understand and want to see the council protect our most productive land, but you've also got plenty of people saying in the community, yeah, I get it, but I don't want that stuff happening in my neighbourhood.
Yeah.
And so this is the balance all the time now, that you're trying to get across all of this pressure, because we have got a growing population, but we also know that the basis of our economy is a land-based, primary sector, export-based economy in the main.
Yeah, because when I first came to Hawke's Bay, it was quite unusual how little housing there was in the city centre, and now that the city has been, the CBD has been rejuvenated and regenerated, and that it will add a good feel to it.
Yeah, it will, but we also had to do some things as a council. Like, you can have all the plans that you like around trying to have some medium density housing, but you've got to have the infrastructure in place to do that. So one of the things that the council's doing right now, and we secured some funding assistance from the government to do this, is we're spending $40 million on upgrading all of our wastewater network, because we need to help. If we want to intensify, we've got to have the infrastructure and the capacity to manage the wastewater, the stormwater, to do this well. So yeah, it's a real planning exercise, and you've got to be quite deliberate about it.
But you're confident you're going to get it right?
The proof will be in what people experience, and I get that not everyone's going to have a universal view on this, and there'll be some people that say, well, we just don't want to see that in Hastings. But we have to be honest that you can't change things and everything can stay the same. So if we're going to take pressure off just doing greenfields development, we actually have to see some different forms of housing, in our existing urban footprints where all the infrastructure already, where that infrastructure already is.
Well, good news indeed, and in terms of that report and that, and then the stats. So all the best with getting even those 65 odd people or whatever out of emergency accommodation.
Yep.
And thanks for your time, Nigel. I do appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew.